All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for jumping on. Today we have Dylan Cooney, Turf Brand Lead with the GreenKing Turf line. And for all of you that have been handling turf products for your customers, Dylan is kind of your go-to contact when it comes to questions for that. So this is just going to be a good introduction to Dylan for those that don't know him personally. But Dylan, I'll let you go ahead and get started. Dylan with GreenKing Turf.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Like Trent said, my name is Dylan Cooney with GreenKing Turf. I'll give you a quick little introduction about myself before we dive into a few topics that we plan on talking about today. Um, so I graduated from Kirkwood back in 2010 with an Associate's of Science degree. Played golf there for a couple years. That was kind of the main reason I even went to Kirkwood was just to get away from Muscatine and play some golf. And I ended up landed with a turfgrass degree and still continue that career to this day. So back after I graduated, I spent a year with the University of Iowa helping take care of the sports fields there. Um, Baseball, football. When I was there, it was the Kinnick was artificial turf, so it's kind of disappointing to not be able to work on that. But we got to take care of the practice fields and their baseball field and other grounds around that. After that, I went to the city of Muscatine, where I currently reside and have lived pretty much all my life. Worked for Parks and Rec Department, managed the 8 soccer fields and the 18 baseball and softball fields up until about 2018. That's where Trent and I got in contact. They had sold us some seed, or tried to at least, and they were looking for a GreenKing Turf brand lead. And that's when I decided to jump ship and work with them. Still this day, I live here in Muscatine with my wife Kelsey, and we just had our first newborn back in November. So she's just a little over 3 months. But other than that, that's about all I got for myself. So the goal of today is to talk about these three topics. We're planning on running through grass species, grass mixes, so the cultivars and what goes into our grass mixes, why we choose the cultivars, varieties, and place them in those mixes. Um, so we'll run over that. Our fertilizer program, our 5-step fertilizer program, um, we just basic products that most homeowners don't even think about using. But it's also a lot of products that are used in the professional lawn care world that you guys have access to today. And then the last topic, we'll be talking about erosion control, hydromulch, and straw and anything erosion related that you guys might be interested with your customers selling to. So grass species is our first topic. Um, we with our main lineup of mixes, we have a few characteristics that we like to make sure that we are covering. Texture is one of them. In the turf grass industry, not so much the ag industry with your forage mixes, but in the turf grass industry, it's important to make sure that it's visually appealing, aesthetically pleasing. Obviously, it has to be effective and efficient with your maintenance practices. Or so that's a key piece. We don't like to see a lot of really woody and coarse stems within the turf grass blend. So we really like to make sure that we're making everything uniform as much as possible. Um, Blending capability. We want to make sure that these species will blend well together, and we're not making this yard patchy. There's certain grasses that work well together, and that's why we choose what we choose. When it says feel underfoot, that's if you've got kids, puppies, babies crawling around, whatever. Making sure that it's not a woody, stemmy plant that's out in your yard. We want that nice carpet feeling to be underneath your feet. So that's why We try to make it as soft as possible. And then maintenance and mowing, it's got to be ma maintenance friendly, essentially, and making sure that the plant is not getting too tall to where you're scalping it. It's growing at that 2.5 to 4.5 inches, which is pretty standard for homeowners and residential mowing. So uh, that's the main thing why we talk about texture. So one of our species that we use is called Kentucky bluegrass. You in the ag industry, I'm sure are very familiar with Kentucky bluegrasses. It's used in a lot of your blends. It's a very common species that's used in a lot of the turfgrass blends in the northern and transition areas. Um, it's forever for the longest time from when I started till within the last I don't know 8 to 10 years it was the most dominant one, that and perennial ryegrass. It's kind of changed a little bit. It's still the Cadillac of the cool season grasses for homeowners, but it does require a lot more maintenance. Um, it's going to be, probably the most aesthetically pleasing out of all the cool season species. It does self-repair, spreading by rhizomes and underground stems. So that's which will give it the self-repairing ability to patch in, weak spots or potential dead spots that come up. Either over winter or whatever traffic, whatever it may be. Um, as you can tell, it's cold tolerant, so it's going to survive the winter well. It is actually a pretty winter hardiness plant, and it does withstand the long run. Um, with all of that, it's there are a few cons. It's one of the longer, cooler season grasses to get established. And when we say that, so when the seed is actually planted and put into the ground, it takes either the quicker ones can get germed in 14 days. The slower and normal ones, I would say, take about 28 days, and that's just to actually take off and start sprouting. Um, so when people say germination days, a lot of people get confused and think, oh, they can go out there and start mowing within a month, and that's as far from the truth as possible. Our our sod farms that we deal with, they kind of have a rule of thumb that when from the time of planting till the time of cutting is about 18 months. Um, so for a tip, and they're the ones they're putting out the professional grade products. They're constantly out there fertilizing, spraying, micromanaging the property as well as you possibly could. So obviously they're going to be a little bit more um, honed into their property than a homeowner. So if a homeowner comes in and buys some grass seed from you and they're upset that they're not seeing the results they think from a bag of Kentucky bluegrass, well, explain to them that it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of nourishment, takes a lot of fertilizer. So you just got to be patient with this kind of product. We really don't do a lot of straight Kentucky bluegrasses besides with sod farms, for that reason, because for a typical homeowner or even a lawn care contractor. It takes a lot of nourishment and care for it. So it's and like as the other bottom bullet point, not as drought tolerant. In our area, as you can tell, or as you guys know, it gets really hot in the summer. A lot of yards, for the most part, are not irrigated except for pulling a hose around and watering yourself manually. So it can be a tough plant to take care of. It's kind of in line with teff grass in your guys' world, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a beautiful species, and it's just remember that it's not as easy as some might think to take care of. So that's Not to get too long-winded on Kentucky bluegrass, but that is a species that is used a lot in our mixes, but it's not the percentage is not as high as maybe some may think.
Hey Dylan, we got a question in the chat here. What can you tell us if there are differences between Kentucky bluegrasses that we would see in forage mixes versus potentially is all Kentucky bluegrass the same, or like if you see Kentucky bluegrass, for example, in a forage mix, what would be some of the defining differences between what you would see in a lawn Kentucky bluegrass?
That's a good question. There's a lot of different cultivars out there in the Kentucky bluegrass world. The ones that I primarily deal with in for the GreenKing side, they're going to be a lot more disease resistant. And then the forage types are they're probably not going to be as zero weed seed certified as say the turf grass blends are. So I would I would say that that's your main um, kind of point with it. It's not that it's going to look a ton different, but when it comes out, but how it reacts, being out in the field or being out in a yard, is definitely where the characteristic differences are. But as for the um, aesthetics of it, you probably wouldn't be able to tell from the naked eye too much of a difference. So, Trent, would you have any other insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can think of, Dylan, is just maintenance. Like ones that are selected for
Mm.
forage use
Yep.
are typically really low maintenance products, more
Yep.
commodity style products, where when you get into the turf side, it's probably a little bit more specific to regions or maintenance schedules or mowing heights or, just different things that would matter more to somebody managing it differently.
Yeah.
Um, and like I think there's probably, I don't know, am I wrong? There's probably 1,500 different species of bluegrass out there, if you could guess.
There, there's new ones that are created every year. They're old ones that are getting kind of just pushed to the wayside. It's like bent grasses. It's crazy how strong the genetics are now these days with them. So yeah, I couldn't even tell you a number. I really couldn't. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot for the forage side, like our 9885s, variety not stated, those kind of bluegrasses can be used in for the forage mixes. The lawn care side, you want something that's going to have a quick spring green up. It's going to be more disease resistant. There are some cultivars that do better with drought. So looking for those ones is what we kind of strive for with the lawn care mixes, and that's also ultimately why the bluegrasses are going to be or the lawn mixes are going to be relatively more expensive too, is because there's a lot more cost that goes into those varieties. So hopefully that cleared up a little bit of the question. Um, but moving on to turf type tall fescue. This is basically, I would say, our staple within our GreenKing lineup of mixes. And it's become and has already become probably the most popular species in the Midwest, I would say, even with not even just Southeast Iowa in the Midwest. Um, as we alluded to with the Kentucky bluegrass, it takes a lot more care. Turf type tall fescue, homeowners can go out and plant that, water it in, and once that gets established, it's not going to take constant applications of fertilizer to keep it strong and thriving going into the summer. And it's going to do a heck of a lot better in the summer. As you can tell with the pros, it's a lot more deep rooted. So it's the moisture management's going to be a heck of a lot easier. Lower inputs of fertilizer, heat tolerant that we discussed, and improved look. So when we say improved look, a lot of people kind of have the thought that tall fescue is going to be this really wide, excuse me, woody plant. The turf type tall fescues, and especially a lot of the cultivars that we're seeing these days are very fine leaf bladed, so they can actually get confused. A lot of people probably from the naked eye wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between that and Kentucky bluegrass with a lot of them. But that being said, it is still a bunch type grass. So most turf type tall fescue is not going to spread by rhizomes. Now we do have RTF, and there are rhizomatous turf type tall fescues out there that will spread by rhizomes, or there are claims that they do, which I have seen it, but I wouldn't say all turf type tall fescues will spread by rhizomes. So it's not going to self-repair like Kentucky bluegrass. It can thin out in heavy traffic areas, but really, it's it does get used a lot in athletic fields for that reason. So I wouldn't be afraid if you had a school district or somebody that's taking care of a soccer field, something that's got high foot traffic that does get used a lot. I do like to blend it with a little bit of Kentucky bluegrass just to help out with the density and the seed population. I don't like to typically seed it alone. There are cases that people do, but then like you said, and then the last older varieties were coarse. So these new turf type tall fescues that we use are a lot thinner leaf bladed. The other pro, in my opinion, to this is that the germination time compared to Kentucky bluegrass is 10 to 14 days. Um, so, a homeowner or contractor goes out there, gets it watered in, gets it growing quicker. It's going to take a lot less care to get it going. So, this is going to be, and we'll go over it when we get to the GreenKing mixes, but this is going to be your primary species in our gridiron, using three different cultivars, and it's also a primary in our mean and green. So well, that's about it for that. Keep moving along a little bit. So no questions on that, Trent? Okay, doesn't sound like it.
No,
All
you
right.
can,
Okay, I just make sure because I can't really see
I
the
will,
chat.
I'll jump in if there's questions.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Perennial ryegrass is another main species that we use. I don't mind it. It's one of those that it's great for quick establishment. I would never. I would typically never seed a yard straight perennial ryegrass. Some people might argue that, depending on if it's gray leaf spot resistant or not. But I like to have a diverse mix in my yard. That being said, it does have very fast germination. People will put it in or have it in their mixes if they're doing something that helps with erosion control just for that reason, or any kind of ryegrass in that nature, to help with the quick germ and the quick ground cover to keep from erosion. But for yards, it does have a few pros. It's obviously fast acting. Does do well, for athletic fields. You see it a lot on athletic fields with either turf type tall fescue or bluegrass. And it does look good. We at the city of Muscatine, we would typically put down for the soccer complex is a 50-50 mix of blue and rye. Um, that rye we had a really bad POA problem, and when that POA would die out in the summer, POA annua, that is, um, that rye would help quick grow in those POA areas and try to choke some of it out. Obviously, we had over 50% POA, so we could never just choke it out with turfgrass, but it did help uh, keep it from spreading even more. As like turf type tall fescue, it's a bunch type grass, doesn't have rhizomes, and I don't really know of that any cultivars out there that do. Um, it can struggle in extreme heat. I think it struggles more than turf type tall fescue, a heck of a lot more, really. And like I alluded to earlier, the biggest problem I see with perennial ryegrass is gray leaf spot. There are GLS varieties out there that do well against that, but For the most part, that's the biggest concern I see. That other diseases like Pythium, um, uh, dollar spot, you name it. That's the biggest issue I have with it. But it is fast germ, and that can be a good positive for when deciding which cultivar to use or which species to use. Okay, not too much to go on the perennial ryegrass side. Okay, creeping red fescue. This is going to be our main ingredient when in our ideal shade mix or any shade mix for that matter. Um, it's that any if wherever you were to go to get a shade mix, you're always going to see, or you should always see, creeping red fescue. You go to Menards or wherever, and if you look at a tag, it should always say creeping red fescue for shade mix. Um, so we always make sure that that is in our mix and is the primary component. It is a fine texture. It tends to lay down. As you can tell, it doesn't get, obviously when it's in the shade, it doesn't get much sunlight. So it's not standing up. It also doesn't require much fertilizer for it, which is good for maintenance needs. And it does spread rhizomatously. Um, that being said, it's not something you'd put on an athletic field because it would be if you ever walk around in a shaded grass area over and over, it does start to die out. And if you've ever seen it in the summer, it starts to wilt out pretty quick as that leaf blade is very thin and doesn't have a ton of nutrients in it to get it through the tough times. Um, but that being said, it's also a good mix or a good species to use in no-mow mixes. Um, um, Obviously it's shown as a con as slower growth overall. But people that like something that they only want to mow once a month or a couple times a year, it's a great product to put in with that. Germination time, you look usually 7 to 14 days, so that's why we have 10 here. Chewings fescue, that's another big part of our shade mix. Um, we don't want to just put all one species into a bag. We like to keep things diverse in case one fails, the other one can take over. Um, Again, another great option for underneath trees or shaded area. We blend this, like I said, with the creeping red fescue. It's got very similar characteristics to creeping red fescue. Low fertility. It's a bunch type grass, um, so it's going to form tight, uniform turf canopy. Um, it's again just like creeping red fescue, not built for heavy traffic, and it can struggle in high heat. I honestly, if I were to look at chewing fescue and creeping red fescue, I probably wouldn't even be able to tell much of a difference. Again, we don't like to put all of our eggs in one basket when putting in a shade mix or any mix for that matter, and so we add chewings, fine fescues, hard fescues, and in case one were to fail or not thrive, we like to have a backup in there. Okay, so that's primarily, I would say, all for any of our mixes or any of the species that we use in our turf mixes. Um, that pretty much, from my understanding, covers them. So if there's any other questions about anyone before we get into turf mixes, please let me know. But yeah, we just wanted to cover why, just characteristics about them to show, why we put them in our turf mixes, to thrive in our areas, essentially. Okay, so first turf mix, one of our two staples that we sell within the GreenKing lineup is our Meaning Green. That's been around since before I started, I believe. Trent would be able to tell you when they came up with that mix. It's a big mover on our contractor side. We do sell a lot of it on the retail side as well. But as you can see in the components, it's a four-way mix. So you've got 35% turf type tall fescue, 35% Kentucky bluegrass, 20% perennial rye, and 10% creeping red. We throw that creeping red fescue in there to help to be able to use it as a sun shade mix, as we talked about in the species before. Your fine fescues, your creeping red fescues, chewing fescues, those are going to be used for your shade mix. So we have that in there, so you can use it for for part shade. I wouldn't put mean and green in a full shaded area. It's mostly a sunshade. Being at almost 50% or close to 50% of the mix being Kentucky bluegrass, I would try to use this in yards that have a little bit better soil. I know we have very high clay content around here. It still does work really well, but your new homeowners or newly built houses, they're I would try to make sure that they have some sort of black topsoil in their yard when planting this. Again, I'm not saying that it wouldn't work perfectly fine, but with that high of Kentucky bluegrass, you wouldn't want 35% of your mix to not work out. Um, so as you can see on the planting specs here, 6 to 8 pounds is for your per 1,000 square feet. That is going to be for your newly seeded areas. So bare soil, when you're planting a new yard, you need to be looking at 6 to 8 pounds per 1,000. That comes out to around 350 pounds per acre, I want to say, off the top of my head. Um, and then your overseeding, you usually just cut those in half. So your overseeding is, going to be on your established yards that maybe have some bare areas. Seeding in the fall, you're going to plant that at about half the rate of 3 to 4 pounds per 1,000. And then your mowing height is pretty standard for turf grass. Um, 2.5 to 3 inches tall for your mowing height. Um, and then packaging, this is something that we have started to do more of is sell these in 25-pound bags, obviously as well as 50s, which we can talk about that more later. But we do offer 25 pounds if 4 bags of mean and grain gridiron or any of our turf grasses. So if you've got a lot of retail customers that are looking for smaller packages size, just let us know because we do offer that. Okay. Next one is gridiron. As you've maybe heard before, um, staple number two. I really don't know which one when people think of GreenKing turf, which one they're gonna know more of, mean and green or gridiron. They're pretty much split evenly, in my opinion. Um, if I were to pick one for our area, I would tend to say that this is the one to go with for anybody that just walks in the door, just because it's a lot more user friendly. It's an 80-10-10 mix. So, as you can see in the components, that's 80% turf type tall fescue, 10% Kentucky blue, 10% perennial rye. We use 3 different cultivars of turf type tall fescue. We talk with our growers to make sure that those are the ones that are the newest varieties that do well on the end taps. Um, and yeah, this one's again just like mean and green. This one's been around since before I started. Um, this is one that you could recommend to, again, if you had a school district come to you or someone take care of a football field, soccer field, and just a wide open house that's out in the middle of a cornfield that's got new seeding needing to be done. This is going to be the one that you would recommend. Somewhere that has no trees, full sun, going to just get hammered in the summer with the heat. I would be recommending them to use gridiron. It's gonna, like we said, before, with the germ rates of turf type tall fescue, it's gonna germ fast. It's gonna be very drought resistant, and it does well with traffic tolerance. Sorry, I need to take a quick drink. So for your just like Mean and Green. We'll go over the seeding rates real quick. And anybody that has questions on these are just PDFs. We can send these over at any time. So don't hesitate to ask for these. But our seeding rates, you're typically 8 to 10 pounds per thousand. So that's somewhere in the 400 to 450 pounds per acre for new seeding. Overrate half of that, 4 to 5 pounds, just like Mean and Green. If you've got an established yard, but it's not doing as well, or just needs a little love in the fall, throw down 5 pounds of gridiron, and that'll help out. And then same mowing height as Mean and Green, and packaging size is exact same as Mean and Green as well, 25s and 50s. Um, okay, ideal shade. This is another one of our. I wouldn't call it a staple, but it's an option that we have. If you've got an area that, we do have a lot of people, or I've dealt with a lot of contractors that always complain. I'm just never getting grass to grow under this shaded area. I've seeded it a million times. The mowers just eat it up. Well, they're usually using the wrong mix, and so we have to strand towards something that's got more of a fine fescue mix in it. Um, as we talked about the species, creeping red fescue, chewing fescue, that's what's going to be the main ingredients in this. So it's a four-way mix, just like Mean and Green. It's got primarily 40% creeping red fescue, 30% Kentucky Blue, as you see, 20% fine hard, and 10% perennial rye. Um, the perennial rye is going to be that's primarily in there just to get something established quick. Um, this is a lot less seeding rate than your Mean and Green and your gridiron. You're looking at 4 to 5 pounds per thousand on new seeding, 2.5 to 3.5 on overseeding, and you can typically mow this a little bit higher. Um, a lot of these components in this shade mix are what I would use or what we use in our no-mow mixes too. So if you have a customer that is coming in that wants something to be established to grow, a couple feet tall, they want kind of a natural wispy look to it. Um, that's a few of these components we would use in an Omo mix. We would maybe add turf type tall fescue, some bluegrass, creeping red, but it's not too far off of this. Um, so if you ever have questions about something like that, just give us a holler, because we do have what we call a no-mo mix or low-mo mix. And those are going to be the three main turf mixes we have. Recently, we started branding our GreenKing, putting our grass seeding actual GreenKing bags. So if you notice a difference with our bags, that's why you'll pretty much any seed on the turf side that comes out of our warehouse will have that beautiful line on it. And it'll be in 25 and 50-pound bags. There might be a few odds and ends that come out that don't have the GreenKing Turf logo, but Gridiron and Mean and Green will always have be in GreenKing Turf bags. Our ideal shade's going to start, and then any of the other ones that are 50-50 mixes, which is 50 blue, 50 rye, which is our double eagle, that'll eventually start turning into GreenKing Turf bags. And these, like I mentioned before, these are available in 25 and 50-pound bags. So don't be afraid to ask about those for your retail customers.
I do want to say we are running our early stock program right now, and unless specified, those are 50-pound bags on the early stock program.
It's a good point.
So Molly, if somebody didn't realize that and would prefer 25s, that's not a switch we can't make at this point.
We can. And that's something I'll have to note, like in our early stock order program moving forward. Like I think when Mark ordered, I gave them the option for 25s. And I think they ended up with 50s anyways, but it is something we can adjust on the early stock program if needed.
Awesome. Thanks, Molly. Okay. That being said, that's our run on the grass seed. We're going to transition over to the fertilizer side. If you have any questions about grass seed, type it in the chat. We can discuss at the end, or you can send me an email too, which I'll have at the end as well. So,
I just got one comment on
yeah,
grass seed in general.
yep.
Is just like when we look at like gridiron, for example, and you have 80% turf type tall fescues, that's not just one cultivar. And we do spend a lot of time evaluating cultivars. Grass seed's just as complex as corn and soybeans is for people that live inside that world. So there are trials and a slew of ratings on all of these products. And so when we're in the and also regional differences, where they do trials by regions and performances of these products by region. And so there's a lot that goes into the selection of these. A lot of times what we're looking at along lines of texture and color and those kind of cosmetic things are specific disease resistance. And so by putting more uh, like three different tall fescues, for example, in gridiron, um, you may have different disease resistances or different just different characteristics in general between all
Mhm.
three of those grasses that complement each other. So if something was to come up, like Dylan was talking about gray leaf spot, like obviously in Southeast Iowa, we have a ton of gray leaf spot pressure. Um, we can select for gray leaf spot tolerance just as you would inside of a corn and soybean or corn lineup potentially. So we do pay very much attention to the agronomics of each of these individual species. And so when we put them together, if there is something that comes up and it wipes one species out, it is not the last line of defense. So just wanted to make a comment on that because I think it's easy for us that don't live in the grass world to think all grass is the same. And
Mhm.
that's the same as me thinking that all corn is the same, and so there are a lot of distinct differences between these that Dylan pays a lot of attention to. So I just wanted to bring that point up before we move on.
Yeah, that's a great point, Trent. And that's why, I mentioned earlier that we like to keep our mixes diverse. In case one fails, gives the other one an opportunity to thrive. Um, you never want to put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to this and comes to seeding, because if it were to not work out, your entire yard or area would be dead. So, um, okay, all right, we're gonna move on to fertilizer. We have offered since I've been around all sorts of different fertilizers with the GreenKing lineup. Um, the We typically with most lawn care companies will run a 5-step program, and we'll go through each one of those steps. It doesn't need to be as complex for your reselling market or for your homeowners, but there are plenty of people out there that do like to take care of your yard throughout the year. So we'll just jump right into it with getting closer to Easter. We our first step is we're going to be looking at doing a preventative crabgrass fertilizer. As you can see on our 5-step program, this is another thing that we can PDF send off if you would like to have it at your shop or just have it in your hands. So homeowner or whoever comes in and is needing a program for their fertilizing needs, this is something that you can give them very basic, very simple, but very effective for the homeowner to look at and to remind them when to fertilize. That is, as you can see, each application is all around a holiday. Easter, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Halloween. Doesn't have to be exactly on those days, but that's kind of a rough time frame of when we look to start putting those fertilizers down. So with the first one coming up, we're looking at putting down a pre-emergent. Um, the soil temps recently were getting close to 50. As I look out my window, I think they're dropping as we talk. But we still need to be thinking about for yards getting down a crabgrass preventer. This is available in both prodiamine and dithiopure, or as if you know the um, manufacturer's label, dimension or barricade and dimension. Um, Soil temps are they were close to, like I said, close to 50 degrees recently. When soil temperatures start to get to 55, crabgrass seedlings can start to emerge. There is a window there from 55 to 62. So and degrees of soil temperature that you try to look to put this down in. Now, for diamine, um, I'm getting ahead of myself. I apologize. This is applied around Easter, and we're looking at 4.5 to 5.5 pounds per 1,000 square feet for the application rate. But for prodiamine, um, we're going to jump ahead to this slide. Apologize. You can put it down. There's companies like TruGreen, other lawn care companies that are applying this either now or going to be next week. And that's because it does not move around in the soil as much as where compared to dimension that will move around in the soil has a shorter window. So as you can see in the pros here, you can put it down very early in the spring. Some people are putting it down now and all the way through April. Um, it's a cheaper product, so it's going to be more cost effective than dimension. Um, but it does have a yellowish tint to it. So when you open up the bag and put it in your fertilizer spreader, it is going to kind of have that yellowish tint. I don't know if stain's the right word. It washes right off, but some people do get annoyed from it. Um, the other thing with prodiamine is that it can be tough to oversee in the fall because it has such a long residual. So it stays in the soil for a long period of time. Depending on the rate that you put, it can be tough if you're looking to oversee DR in, early to mid-September. Um, and this product is just a preventative, puts down a chemical barrier in the soil, so it doesn't kill off. Don't think of it as killing any broadleafs. It's just to prevent the summer annual crabgrass from coming. Again, applied at 4.5 to 5.5 pounds per thousand. I apologize, my slides got a little mixed up here. I'm going to go back to Dimension, which is a second option, or the second impregnated herbicide that you would look at using when putting down a pre-emergent. Um, this product is, I would say, it's probably 50-50 on companies, lawn care companies that use both Dimension and Barricade. It depends on what they're going after. You do have a shorter window with Dimension. That being, like we said, it will move around in soil, so you can't go out right now and put down Dimension, or by the time that crabgrass is really starting to emerge, that chemical barrier might already be washed off and not do any good. So this is typically put down in late April. Some people put it down as far up as far as mid-May. So it just kind of depends on what your soil temps are doing. It does allow that shorter window does allow you to overseed in the fall, and it doesn't have the staining on the equipment. So the big thing with Dimension is the post-emergent activity, and it's any other weed seeds that are in the soil that have started to emerge. It will take care of those, as well as early season crabgrass that has started to come out of the soil. Um, you have to be careful. This product will leach through, like we said. I had some customers that talked about how crabgrass was a problem last year. If you look back at spring, how much rain we got, I told them that you probably either put it down too early with Dimension, or we just got too much rain. So we went ahead and switched them to prodiamine for this year, just for that reason, in case we run into a really wet spring again. And it typically is a few bucks more per bag, a little bit more expensive. So that's step one. So dimensional prodiamine is going to be your step one. Step two is a weed and feed.
Bill, can I stop you on step one? It's just important to note, and maybe
Yep.
I missed you saying this, but
Okay.
you cannot put down either of these products in a seeding year. So, like
Yeah, sorry, I got.
if you're planning
Yep.
on overseeding or establishing a new lawn, these products will not allow your cool season grasses to establish. So you would
Yep,
you would just substitute this step on a spring seeding for a starter fertilizer,
that's
uh,
correct.
and then move forward. So come back in year two and try to get ahead of the crabgrass. Or if you're going to reseed in year two, again, you're going to be out this option. So this is for established turf only.
And a little bit off of Trent's point there with how the last few weeks have been. Actually, it was a perfect time to be seeding, getting your turf seed in the ground. There actually is sometimes a short window where you can put seed in the ground, get it to germinate, and put down a pre-emergent. It can be a tight window. I don't really recommend it too often, but there is times where people can get the best of both worlds. But like Trent said, yeah, do not go out and seed an entire yard and then put down this at the same time, or you have wasted a lot of money. So thanks for pointing that out, Trent. Okay. Step two, weed and feed. This is going to be put down again, like on that chart, going to be put down around Memorial Day. Any broadleaf started to emerge. This is going to be great to feed the existing turf and weed out the the weeds. So you need to put this down usually in early morning. When there's dew on the ground, uh, just for the fact that when you've got that prill, that herbicide prill, you need it to stick to the weed in order for it to activate and get it to kill off the weed. Um, I typically, when it comes to killing off weeds, I would prefer using a chemical. When it comes to a homeowner, or somebody that just wants to do something simplistic, this is a great way. Even if they don't kill off the weeds, this does provide good nutrients for the existing turf to going into summer. We do, as you can tell on this label here, it does have slow release urea. So it's going to slow feed that plant going into summer when the plant starts to try to go into dormancy a little bit. Uh, I've got a weed list of that weeds controlled on the next page. Um, we're not going to go through every single one of them, or we'll be here till noon. But um, you do apply this product at 4 pounds, which you'll see most of the fertilizers on here. If you have them applied at 4 pounds, 4 to 5 pounds, any of the products, for the most part, will be perfectly fine. Um, this is just the weeds controlled, which is quite a bit. I will point out wild violets is over here on the bottom right. That's usually a very persistent weed that gets in a lot of homeowners' yards that people like to try to kill. So this product will kill off that dandelions, clovers are going to be your main ones. But again, you can't just go out in the middle of the afternoon and put it down and expect to kill off the weeds. You need to have moisture on the plant to absorb that chemical that's in there. Moving along to step three of our 5-step program. This, as you see in parentheses, is optional. It's a grub control. In our area, and especially Fairfield, really, I've had a few people call me and tell me there's a lot of grub damage this year, either direct or indirect. Um, and when I say indirect, that's talking about raccoons um, digging, looking for grubs. So we're trying to figure out a better way to manage that. This is just a typical merit imidacloprid product put down in late June, early July, right around 4th of July is a good way to mitigate this. This product needs to be watered in, or it will not activate and work. We Typically, we have a product called 700 for the NPK with a 0.2 midicloprid that we sell. It's the cheaper product of the two. We do have a more expensive product called a Celiprin. Um, my history of using both products, a Celiprin is way more effective. I've never heard of any breakthrough of grubs with Celiprin. It is a lot. It's usually over double the price, but it is, if you have problems with grubs, that is the way to go. So if you have anybody or yourself has issues with grubs, let me know, and we will probably lean more towards a Celiprin depending on how many bags you need. But if you do end up still having breakthrough, and typically seen in September, and you want to kill off what's there, there's a product called Dilox 6.2 that also needs to be watered in. That is going to kill off any thriving grubs in the ground. Again, this product, step three, is used as a preventative, so it is it's going to take away the eggs that have been planted and kill off those insects. So the goal is to, as you see in the notes, is to get it applied before during the egg laying cycle.
Tilly, we do have a question on step two from
Oh
Mark.
yeah,
His
sorry.
question was, just acknowledgement of sulfur in 2508. My understanding of the sulfur component in most weed feeds is just that sulfur helps so much with stress reduction. And so
Yeah,
when you're applying a leaf applied chemistry with that fertilizer, the sulfur portion of that's important to just keep that plant healthy and keep it as less stress so it can metabolize that chemical out. Is that correct? Is that you?
no, I would say that's absolutely spot on. And heading into, when you're playing this heading into summer, keeping the plant from being stressed is another big thing when the hot temperatures start to rise. So, yep, absolutely. Okay, 9:52 here, so I'm sorry if I speed through these next few slides. I'll try to get them done as quick as possible. Step four, our one of our main products that we have is a 24-210 with 75% slow release. So slow release fertilizer, as you probably already know, is something that you see a lot with lawn care companies that apply fertilizer. Um, it's better for yards because it provides a steady, sustained supply of nutrients for usually 6 to 12 weeks. It prevents that feast or famine cycle of rapid growth, followed by starvation. So when you're planting, a lot of people just think, fertilizer is fertilizer when putting down your yard, but like when you're putting down a new seeding, you want those all mineral products that flush out quicker to help boost that new seeding to come out, like a triple 13. When we're in fall, we're just slowly feeding the plant, getting it ready, uh, going into winter, and trying to really thicken up that leaf blade. So that's just again, this in this product, step four, I tell people, if they're not wanting to put down all the different kinds, just put down 24-210 throughout the year. And if you already have a well-established yard, it's got iron in it, it's going to green it up. Really easy to use. Again, apply at 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet. You can't really go wrong with it. The only time I would say is maybe summer you could burn it, but it's got such amount of slow release that it'd be tough to. Okay, the final step is a winterizer. Um, we typically carry a 30-10 with 50% slow release. We look at applying this again around the holiday. Around Halloween is usually a good time right before winter starts to hit. As you can see in this picture, this is with fall fertilization when this is without. You can see the difference coming out of winter, um, how much more green the one house is than the others. I'm not going to say that that's only because of fall fertilization. I'm guessing that that's part of it, but I don't know if I could admit that that's the only thing. But it does help. It helps strengthen your winterizer is going to strengthen the grass roots. It's going to enhance the nutrient storage and it's going to improve cold drought tolerance going into winter. Just making sure it survives winter dormancy and greens up faster in the spring. Um, so it's something that is very important. Every step's important. But I going into getting it through winter, depending on our winters around here in Iowa, is very important. So um, yeah, it's also environmentally friendly. It's not going to flush through the soils. That's important to some people as well, or most people. So apply this around again around 4 pounds, maybe a little less because it's higher in nitrogen, and you should be good. So those are our 5 steps again.
One
Go
one thing
ahead.
I want to note on that, everyone that's on here comes from, more of an agronomy background on the fertilizer side of things. And as Dylan was creating this webinar this morning, Trent and I were really challenging the fact, if you want to go back to that the winterizer deal, Trent and I were really, like challenging that. We felt like there should be some phosphorus in
Higher
that
phosphorus.
product. In something to note here is once your turf is established, phosphorus is not as important. So phosphorus is a fertilizer you put down and is really crucial in that first year of establishing your yard. And it is not, unless you're soil testing and paying attention to that, it's not something that you're applying after that yard is established. So that was something Trent and I really had to challenge our brains on, because we're so used to putting down NPK and sulfur. But phosphorus is not as important after that yard is established. So something to note when you are putting down new seeding, phosphorus is an important piece of that.
Yep, that's a great point, Molly. That's why you see a lot of your starter fertilizers either all balanced throughout the NP and K, or we the Iowa DOT specs when doing seeding for their engineers, like a 624-24 product. So 24% phosphorus is very high. So it's very important to them for the root development of that plant. Um, Okay, finish off. We're gonna go with we're gonna talk about erosion control real quick. We do handle a few erosion control products. We just want you to be aware. There's one that we have started to really talk about and bring on, which that will be here in a second. But straw rolls, we just want you to be aware that we do have them. Great for new seating. They're available in 8 by 112 and a half foot rolls. It's pretty simple to handle. Those come out, so that's going to get you 900 square foot or 100 square yards. Um, there's 25 per pallet. I'm just going to do the quick math. If you were to do an acre of seeding with all straw rolls, you would need about 2 pallets or 48 and a half rolls. So just keep that in mind if somebody's wanting to do that. Will help maintain moisture for new seeding, and it keeps that seed in the ground from eroding if it's on a hillside. These are weed seed free. It's a heck of a lot better than blowing straw, not knowing where the straw is coming from. So. Seed Aid Cover Grow is a profile product. This is the one I was talking about a few minutes ago. This is a great product and user friendly for homeowners when they go down and put down seed. If they don't want to deal with cutting up a big straw roll or handling that, get a bag of Seed Aid, put down some seed, throw this on top. It comes in pellet forms. It's going to really, as the name says, aid the seed in germinating up. It's going to help hold that moisture in the ground as well. Um, the other really nice thing with this is, unlike hydromulch, this can be pushed through a push spreader because it's in pellet form. So it's really simple to use. You can't over apply it. It's however much you want to use. For the contractors, if you do have any out there that are interested in purchasing it through you, recommend it at 1,500 to 3,000 pounds per acre based on how steep the slope is. If you need the technical sheet for this, let me know. I'll send it over to you. It's pretty simple to get. Profile Products also has it on their website as well, the manufacturer that makes this.
One thing
Something
I
to
will
note.
say on,
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to say this, Trent. This product is great in spots where you maybe had a pool or you took out a tree stump.
Mhm.
We used it along our cement last year at the shop. So this is a really good fill-in product. I know Trent used it around some of his landscaping, or maybe it's not getting the sunlight or the moisture, or even under playground equipment. So this is a really good fill-in product. Trent does sell it by the bag there. I know Dylan sells it by the pallet. But this is kind of a silent night there. I feel like this is totally underrated.
Hmm.
I think I've seen this product work and I really love it. So
Yeah, that's 100% right, Molly. And even areas of if you've got dogs, especially female dogs that have that urine spots, the females that have higher acidic or acidity in their urine. This is a lot of people fight in especially smaller yards. I do myself, where a dog were to go off the deck, go pee, and they kill off these areas. This would be perfect for those. That or gypsum to help neutralize the soil. But yeah, that's a great point, Molly. Your areas around high traffic areas that die off by street curbs, from salt, wherever, this is a great product to throw down. Very easy to use.
Way easier than handling straw rolls too. I mean, if you
Very, yes.
for like a homeowner. So like Mark, I know you sell quite a bit of retail turf down there. Like this is a product I would highly encourage just having around. I think it sells itself
Mhm.
for those small areas. The other thing I will say is it can go through a push spreader as long as your push spreader doesn't have one of the screens in the bottom. You may have
Mhm.
to remove that screen to make sure that you have enough space to allow the pelletized product to flow through. I have seen that be a problem, but for the bigger spreaders with the pneumatic tires, this is just a tremendous product to be able to use.
Yeah, and you can go
Um,
out and you can throw the seed. You can just put the seed and the cover grow and the spreader together, mix it up, and just go throw it away, or you go apply it. So,
yeah. Mark's beat you to your next slide. He's asking, is there anything available for hydro seeders? So that should lead you in, I think.
okay, perfect, Mark. Yes, absolutely. So these are just pictures, sorry, of the cover grow, what it looks like, so you can kind of get a visual of that. Um, but yes, Mark, that is great comments, because we do have, again, through Profile, we have a blend, a hydromulch blend, that we've used for a while now, that we found very useful. And we have a lot of contractors that are starting to buy hydro seeders, because of just how much more efficient they are with their seeding, rather than using straw rolls. It's a lot less labor intensive. This is the bales that we have are 70% wood and 30% cellulose or paper, whatever you want to call it. It's available, and these are in 50-pound bales. The Seed Aid cover grows, I don't know if I mentioned, are in 40-pound bales. Um, the Seed Aid was in 48 bags per pallet. These are in 40 bags per pallet. Um, and pretty similar to Seed Aid on the rates. You're looking at 2,000 to 2,500 pounds per acre based on the slope. Again, like we said, it's great for contractors who have hydro seeders. You're going to get that instant, when you're tank mixing this with water. Some people, I have a contractor that'll put everything in his hydro seeder. He'll put seed, fertilizer, um, the hydromulch, and even mesotrione as well, which is tenacity to keep crabgrass or any other weed seeds from coming up, which but still allows grass seed to pop. He'll throw that all in there, and away he'll go. Um, and it's very, very simple and effective. But again, you need a tank agitator to use this. This isn't something that you can a homeowner's really going to find effective if they buy it, unless they were to rip it up with their hands and throw it out in the yard. We would rather them just use the cover grow. Um, so yeah, that's if there's any other things you want to add to that, Trent. We do keep this stocked at our warehouse throughout the year. Something you can actually store outside and not have any problems with. So for, if you're worried about warehousing space, this is something you can set up next to your building. These are very tall pallets. So just keep that in mind when, if you need to transport any. So, is there anything you want to add on to that, Trent or Molly, before we conclude? Okay. So yeah, again, thanks again for attending the seminar, the first GreenKing Turf seminar. This is my information. If you ever need to get a hold of me, Dylan at harvesthavenseed.com is the best way through email, or my direct cell phone number is right there. Yeah, or call the office. Trent and Molly and the rest of the warehousing staff is well versed on these products as well. But feel free to email me if you need any of those technical guides that we've shown or PDFs. We would be more than willing to send those over so you have those readily available at any time for your customers. So, Trent, is there any comments, or Molly?